The medical station Meridian 7 floated in the darkness of space like a giant silver wheel. Inside its sterile white corridors, the best doctors in the galaxy worked day and night to save lives. But today, they were losing. Dr. James Murphy, the human liaison officer, walked quickly through the main medical bay. His boots made soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. Around him, alien doctors moved with practiced efficiency between glowing machines and floating holographic displays. This was the most advanced medical facility in known space, equipped with technology that could rebuild entire organs at the molecular level. But none of it was working. In the center of the bay, on a raised platform surrounded by humming machines, lay Commander Velthak of the Crystalline Confederacy. His body was made of living crystal, normally clear and beautiful like a diamond sculpture. Now, dark veins spread through his transparent form like cracks in breaking glass. The quantum cellular degradation syndrome was eating him alive from the inside, and despite 3 weeks of constant treatment, he was dying. Dr. Kethmore materialized beside the patient in a shimmer of blue gas. The ethereal physician was one of the most respected healers in the galaxy, his gaseous form able to interact directly with energy patterns that other species could not even see. But even his abilities had failed. "The quantum cascade is spreading faster," he announced to the other doctors. His voice sounded like wind through trees. "His neural pathways are breaking apart faster than we can fix them." Dr. Helen Cross, a 6-armed arachnid surgeon, clicked her sharp mandibles together in frustration. Each of her delicate arms could perform different surgical procedures simultaneously, making her the finest surgeon in 3 sectors. She had tried 17 different operations, but nothing worked. "Every stabilization protocol has failed," she said, her multiple eyes studying the patient's readings. "The cellular breakdown resists everything we try." Above them, a massive holographic display showed Commander Velthak's condition in frightening detail. Red warning lights blinked across every major system. His heart rhythm was irregular, his brain activity was fading, and his unique crystalline biology was simply falling apart. Apollo 7, the station's artificial intelligence medical system, spoke in its calm, emotionless voice. "Patient survival probability has decreased to 0.3%. Recommendation: begin end-of-life procedures." The words hit the medical team like a physical blow. These were not ordinary doctors. They represented 12 different species and possessed medical knowledge that spanned thousands of years of advancement. They had technology that could regrow limbs, cure genetic diseases, and even transfer consciousness between bodies. Yet they stood helpless before one dying patient. Dr. William Blake, the station's chief of surgery, ran his hand through his graying hair. He had worked on Meridian 7 for 15 years and had never felt so defeated. Around him, alien colleagues who had saved millions of lives looked just as lost. The silence in the medical bay was heavy and uncomfortable. Everyone knew what came next. They would have to call Commander Velthak's family and tell them that the galaxy's finest medical minds had failed. Dr. Murphy was about to start writing the death certificate when Lieutenant Sarah Torres rushed into the bay. The young communications officer looked excited and confused at the same time. "Doctors," she called out, slightly out of breath. "We have an incoming emergency transport requesting immediate docking permission. They say they have medical personnel aboard who want to examine our patient." Dr. Kethmore's gaseous form rippled with what might have been hope. "Another specialist? Which species?" Torres checked her electronic tablet, then looked up with an expression that was hard to read. "Actually, sir, it's a human vessel. Single occupant. They are requesting permission to examine Commander Velthak." The reaction in the medical bay was immediate. Several alien doctors exchanged glances that said everything without words. Humans were barely recognized in galactic medical circles. Their biological healing methods were considered primitive and outdated compared to quantum medicine and nanosurgery. Most alien physicians viewed human medicine the way human doctors might view ancient remedies involving herbs and prayer. Dr. Cross clicked her mandibles in what sounded like disbelief. "A human? What could a human possibly offer that we cannot provide? They still use chemical drugs and metal instruments." Dr. Blake felt a flash of irritation at the casual dismissal of his species, but he could not argue with the facts. Human medical technology was centuries behind what surrounded them in this room. They had no quantum healers, no molecular reconstruction devices, no consciousness transfer capabilities. But as he looked at Commander Velthak's failing body and the defeated faces of the galaxy's best doctors, Dr. Blake realized they had already tried everything their advanced civilization could offer. Maybe it was time for something different. "Grant them docking clearance," he said quietly. Dr. Kethmore's form shimmered with surprise. Are you certain? This is highly irregular. Dr. Blake looked around the medical bay one more time. The most advanced medical equipment in the galaxy hummed and beeped around a dying patient they could not save. The holographic displays showed cascading system failures. The death certificate waited to be signed. We've exhausted every option our technology can provide, he said finally. Commander Velthak is going to die unless something changes. At this point, what do we have to lose? Lieutenant Torres nodded and spoke into her communicator. Unknown human vessel, you are cleared for emergency docking at Bay 7. Medical team will meet you upon arrival. As the alien doctors reluctantly agreed to the plan, none of them could have imagined how completely everything was about to change. In less than an hour, a single human with a worn medical bag would walk onto their station and revolutionize everything they thought they knew about healing. The airlock doors slid open with a soft hiss, and Dr. Emma Blake stepped onto Meridian 7. She carried a single worn leather medical bag that looked like it belonged in a museum compared to the gleaming technology surrounding her. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her blue medical uniform showed the dust and wear of countless frontier assignments. The assembled medical team watched with barely hidden skepticism as she walked toward Commander Velthak's bedside. Her equipment looked ancient next to the quantum resonance chambers and molecular reconstruction arrays that filled the medical bay. Several alien doctors whispered among themselves in languages that sounded like music and clicking sounds. Dr. Emma ignored their stares and focused on the patient. Commander Velthak lay motionless on the biostabilization table, his crystalline body flickering with unstable light patterns. Dark veins spread through his transparent form like poison in water. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. Quantum cellular degradation syndrome, she said quietly, studying the holographic displays that floated around the patient. I can see why you're having trouble with this one. Dr. Kethmore's gaseous form rippled as he moved closer. Dr. Blake, I presume? With all due respect, this syndrome has puzzled our greatest medical minds for 3 weeks. The quantum matrices involved are far beyond human understanding. Emma interrupted gently, pulling a simple scanner from her bag. The device was no bigger than her hand and looked primitive compared to the room-sized diagnostic machines around them. Maybe. But sometimes the most complex problems have the simplest solutions. She began her examination, moving slowly and carefully around the patient. Unlike the alien physicians who relied on their sophisticated sensors and energy readings, Emma did something that surprised everyone. She placed her hands directly on Commander Velthak's crystalline surface. Dr. Helen Cross clicked her mandibles in confusion. What are you doing? Direct physical contact could disrupt his quantum field. I'm listening, Emma replied, closing her eyes and concentrating. She moved her hands along the patient's arm, feeling for temperature changes and energy patterns. His body is trying to tell us something. We just need to know how to listen. The alien doctors watched in fascination as Emma continued her strange examination. Her simple scanner beeped softly as she worked, but she seemed to rely more on touch and observation than on any readings it provided. After several minutes, Emma opened her eyes with a frown. This is interesting. His quantum signature isn't random at all. There's definitely a pattern here. She turned to face Dr. Kethmore. Has anyone talked to Commander Velthak about how this illness started? Talked to him? Dr. Cross sounded puzzled. The patient has been unconscious since he arrived. Our priority has been stabilizing his cellular matrix before it completely breaks down. Emma pulled out her scanner and showed them the display. The readings meant nothing to the alien doctors, but Emma's excitement was clear. According to this, his consciousness patterns show he's been awake and aware this entire time. The quantum degradation is affecting his ability to communicate with you, but not his awareness. The medical team exchanged shocked glances. They had been discussing the patient's condition, his chances of survival, and even his death right in front of him for 3 weeks. If Emma was right, he had heard everything. Emma turned directly toward the patient and spoke in a gentle voice. Commander Velthak? Can you hear me? If you understand what I'm saying, try to make your core temperature a little warmer. The assembled doctors held their breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Commander Velthak's crystalline form pulsed with a brief, warm golden glow. Oh my God, whispered Dr. Blake. He's been conscious this whole time. Emma nodded sadly. Imagine being trapped in a failing body, unable to speak or move, while everyone around you discusses your death as if you weren't there. The psychological trauma alone would be devastating. She continued her examination, noting details that the advanced scanners had somehow missed. The degradation pattern wasn't spreading randomly through the commander's body. It followed specific pathways that reminded Emma of something she had seen before in human patients. The breakdown pattern follows stress pathways, she explained to the watching doctors. In humans, we know that severe emotional distress can cause real physical illness. Commander, have you been carrying some kind of emotional burden? Something that's been weighing heavily on your mind? Another pulse of light, stronger this time, and tinged with what looked like sadness. I thought so. Emma began setting up her simple diagnostic equipment. In human medicine, we've learned that you can't heal the body without healing the mind and spirit. They're all connected. Your species might express this differently than humans do, but the basic principle is the same. Dr. Helen Cross leaned forward with renewed interest. You're suggesting this is psychosomatic? Not exactly psychosomatic, Emma replied, connecting her scanner to a small device that looked like a cross between a radio and a music player. I'm suggesting that whatever emotional trauma Commander Velthak has been carrying is manifesting as quantum cellular instability. In humans, severe stress can cause heart attacks, stomach ulcers, even autoimmune disorders. Maybe in crystalline beings, it causes quantum degradation. She placed her hand gently on Commander Velthak's shoulder and spoke directly to him. Whatever happened, whatever you've been blaming yourself for, you don't have to carry that burden alone anymore. We're here to help, not just with your body, but with whatever is hurting your heart. For the first time in 3 weeks, Commander Velthak's quantum fluctuations began to stabilize. The chaotic light patterns flowing through his crystalline form started to slow and organize themselves into more regular rhythms. Apollo 7's emotionless voice broke the stunned silence. Patient vital signs showing marked improvement. Quantum cascade rate has decreased by 12%. Dr. Kethmore's gaseous form shimmered with amazement. How is this possible? Emma smiled as she watched the patient's condition continue to improve. Sometimes the best medicine isn't a drug or a procedure. Sometimes it's just being heard and understood. Over the next several days, Dr. Emma Blake changed everything about how medicine was practiced aboard Meridian 7. While the alien physicians continued to focus on quantum readings and cellular reconstruction, Emma spent hours simply talking with Commander Velthak. Communication was difficult at first. The commander could only respond with subtle changes in his crystalline light patterns. Emma had to learn an entirely new language made of glowing colors and gentle pulses of warmth. She sat beside his bed for hours, asking questions and watching carefully for his responses. It's like learning to speak with someone who can only whisper, she explained to Dr. Kethmore as they watched the patient's slowly improving stability readings. But if you're patient enough to listen, every being in the universe has a story to tell. The alien doctors were fascinated by Emma's methods. Instead of relying on advanced scanners and diagnostic machines, she used her eyes, her hands, and most importantly, her patience. She noticed things that their sophisticated equipment had classified as unimportant background noise. Through careful observation and gentle questioning, Emma began to piece together Commander Velthak's story. He had been a military leader during a recent conflict between the Crystalline Confederacy and a neighboring system. During one battle, he had made a strategic decision that saved his fleet but resulted in the destruction of a civilian space station. 3,000 innocent people died because of my orders, the commander managed to communicate through a series of dim, pulsing lights. The guilt in his quantum signature was so strong that Emma's simple scanner could detect it. Dr. Helen Cross watched in amazement as Emma guided the commander through what she called adapted meditation techniques. These were human relaxation and therapy methods that Emma had modified to work with crystalline biology and psychology. Remarkable, Dr. Cross admitted, observing how the commander's chaotic light patterns grew more organized with each session. We've been treating his symptoms while completely ignoring the cause. Emma had discovered something that the galaxy's most advanced medical minds had missed. In crystalline physiology, intense emotional trauma didn't just affect the mind, it literally restructured the body at the quantum level. Their thoughts and feelings were directly connected to their physical form in ways that most other species couldn't imagine. Guilt is eating him alive, Emma explained as she adjusted her treatment approach. In humans, severe emotional stress can cause heart disease, ulcers, and immune system problems. In Commander Velthak's species, that same stress is causing quantum cellular breakdown. She couldn't manipulate quantum fields like Dr. Kethmore, and she couldn't perform molecular surgery like Dr. Cross. But Emma could recognize the signs of a being in emotional pain, regardless of what species they belong to. In human medicine, we have a saying, Emma told the assembled medical team as they watched her work. Sometimes the best medicine isn't found in a bottle or a machine. Sometimes it's simply being heard and understood by another living being. Dr. William Blake, the human chief of surgery, found himself learning as much as his alien colleagues. He had spent years trying to prove that human medicine could compete with galactic technology. Now he watched Emma succeed using methods that were thousands of years old. "How did you know to look for emotional causes?" he asked during one of their evening discussions. Emma showed him her worn notebook, filled with handwritten observations from dozens of frontier colonies and remote outposts. "I've seen this pattern before, in human soldiers coming back from war. Trauma has a signature that crosses species boundaries. The guilt, the isolation, the way it destroys you from the inside, it doesn't matter if you're made of carbon or silicon or crystalline matrix." Her notes documented case after case where advanced alien medical technology had failed, but simple human compassion had succeeded. Soldiers who couldn't be healed by nanomedicine but recovered when someone took time to listen to their stories. Colonists whose mysterious illnesses disappeared when their underlying fears and anxieties were addressed. "Your technology is incredible," Emma continued, gesturing at the quantum healing chambers around them. "But somewhere along the way, you became so focused on fixing the mechanical problems that you forgot about the person experiencing them." As Commander Velthak's condition continued to improve, word began spreading throughout the galactic medical community. The impossible case, the dying crystalline commander that 12 species couldn't save, was recovering under the care of a human field medic with basic equipment. Dr. Apollo 7, the station's AI system, had been frantically trying to analyze Emma's methods. Its probability calculations had risen from 0.3% to 40%, then to 70% survival odds. But the AI couldn't quantify what was actually healing the patient: compassion, patience, and the simple act of treating him as a complete being rather than a collection of broken systems. "This changes everything we thought we knew about medicine," Dr. Kethmore said quietly as they watched Commander Velthak successfully communicate through controlled light patterns for the first time since his arrival. Emma nodded, already planning the next phase of treatment. She had contacted a crystalline counselor who specialized in war trauma, and she was working with Dr. Cross to develop new surgical techniques that considered emotional factors alongside physical ones. "This is just the beginning," Emma said, watching as the commander's crystalline form glowed with the first truly healthy light they had seen from him. "Every patient is a person first and a medical condition second. Once we remember that simple truth, everything else becomes possible." The most advanced medical station in the galaxy was learning its most important lesson from a human doctor with a worn medical bag and an ancient truth: healing begins with caring enough to truly listen. News of Commander Velthak's remarkable recovery spread through the galactic medical network faster than light itself. Within 3 days, Meridian 7 was receiving emergency requests from desperate physicians across 15 sectors. They all wanted to understand how a human with primitive medical training had succeeded where the galaxy's most advanced specialists had failed. Dr. Emma Blake found herself facing a waiting room full of impossible cases. The first patient was Clicktar, a mantid drone who had been severed from their hive mind during a terrible accident. The insect-like being sat hunched in the corner, their forearms wrapped around their body in obvious distress. "Individual mantids cannot survive psychological separation from the collective," explained Dr. Helen Cross as they reviewed the case files. "We've been trying to rebuild the neural connections artificially for 2 months, but Clicktar's brain keeps rejecting every attempt." Emma studied the trembling patient with gentle eyes. Clicktar looked like a giant praying mantis, but their compound eyes held an intelligence and sadness that was heartbreakingly familiar. She had seen that same look in human soldiers who had lost their entire units in battle. "What if the rejection isn't a malfunction?" Emma asked quietly. "What if it's adaptation?" She spent the entire afternoon sitting with Clicktar, using simple translation devices to communicate. The conversation was slow and difficult, but gradually a story emerged. Before the accident, Clicktar had been questioning certain aspects of hive doctrine. The neural severing had actually freed them to think independently for the first time in their life. "You're not broken," Emma told the confused drone through the translator. "You're becoming something new. Instead of forcing you back into a collective that no longer fits, what if we helped you learn how to be an individual?" The concept was revolutionary. Every medical protocol for separated mantids focused on reconnect ion to the hive. Emma was suggesting something that had never been tried before, helping Clicktar embrace their individuality rather than fighting it. Within 2 weeks, Clicktar was walking upright, making decisions independently, and even expressing personal preferences. They became the first successfully autonomous mantid in recorded galactic history. The second case was even more challenging. Flux ARA was a being made entirely of living plasma, a creature of pure energy contained within magnetic field generators. Their fundamental molecular structure was becoming unstable, causing random dispersal events that threatened permanent dissolution. Standard treatment involves stronger containment fields and energy stabilization matrices, Dr. Kethmore explained, his gaseous form shimmering with concern. But the degradation is accelerating despite our best efforts. Emma observed Flux ARA carefully through the transparent containment chamber. The plasma being pulsed and swirled in patterns that seemed almost frantic. Every few minutes, parts of their energy form would suddenly expand against the containment walls before snapping back to center. They are claustrophobic, Emma realized suddenly. Plasma beings are used to unlimited expansion and freedom of movement. These containment fields aren't healing them, they're causing stress that's making the breakdown worse. Working with Dr. Kethmore, Emma developed a completely new treatment approach. Instead of stronger containment, they gave Flux ARA controlled expansion opportunities in a specially modified chamber. Emma also taught them meditation techniques adapted for energy-based consciousness, helping them find calm and stability from within rather than relying on external force fields. Flux ARA's molecular cohesion improved dramatically once their psychological needs were addressed alongside their physical condition. The third case brought Emma face to face with her most unusual challenge yet. Root High was a plant-based Verdani, a species that looked like walking trees with intelligent flowering heads. They were suffering from what appeared to be aggressive root rot, but all attempts to treat the condition with antifungal agents and nutrient supplements had failed. Emma spent hours studying Root High's condition. The Verdani had stopped absorbing nutrients properly and was slowly withering away despite being provided with optimal growing conditions. Something about the case felt familiar, but Emma couldn't identify what. Then she noticed Root High's behavioral patterns. The plant being spent long periods facing away from other patients, their flowering head drooped constantly, and they showed no interest in the carefully prepared soil mixtures that other Verdani found delicious. "You're grieving," Emma said suddenly, speaking directly to Root High through a chemical translation device that converted her words into scent patterns. "Something terrible happened, didn't it?" Through patient communication involving soil chemistry changes and light pattern variations, Emma discovered that Root High was the sole survivor of their forest community. Industrial development had destroyed their entire ecosystem, killing hundreds of their friends and family members. The root rot was actually a form of survivor's guilt manifesting as physical illness. Every species expresses psychological trauma differently, Emma explained to the growing crowd of medical observers who came to watch her work each day. But the underlying patterns are always the same: isolation, guilt, fear, loss of purpose. If you only treat the physical symptoms while ignoring the emotional cause, you're not really healing anyone. Word of these miraculous recoveries reached the highest levels of galactic government. Meridian 7 became an unofficial pilgrimage site for the galaxy's most challenging medical cases. Physicians who had spent entire careers relying on advanced technology began asking Emma to teach them about concepts they had never considered important: bedside manner, patient psychology, and treating the whole being rather than just the disease. Dr. Apollo 7 began incorporating Emma's methods into its diagnostic protocols, creating the first medical algorithms designed to assess emotional and psychological factors alongside physical symptoms. "You've revolutionized everything," Dr. William Blake told Emma as they watched a mixed team of human and alien doctors successfully treat a patient using combined approaches. "We forgot that healing is about more than just fixing broken parts." Emma smiled, watching a young Arachnid medical student practice human-style patient communication with a recovering crystalline patient. Maybe that's the real breakthrough. Learning that advanced technology and ancient wisdom don't have to compete. When we combine them properly, we can heal in ways that neither could achieve alone. 8 months after Dr. Emma Blake's arrival on Meridian 7, the galaxy received news that shocked the medical community to its core. The Galactic Medical Consortium announced the creation of the first integrated healing institute, where advanced alien technology would be combined with human holistic healing methods. The ceremony took place in the new institute's central healing chamber, a remarkable space that looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. Quantum reconstruction arrays stood beside meditation gardens filled with plants from dozens of worlds. Nanosurgical suites shared corridors with comfortable consultation rooms designed for patient counseling and therapy sessions. Emma stood before representatives from 23 different species as they formally offered her the position of Director of Holistic Medicine. It was the first time in galactic history that a human had been offered such a prestigious role in the medical hierarchy. 6 months ago, we would have laughed at this idea, admitted Chancellor Thekmore, a distinguished crystalline elder whose own recovery from quantum degradation had become legendary throughout the galaxy. The species we once considered medically primitive has shown us that we had become prisoners of our own technology. Commander Velthak, now completely healthy and serving as the Institute's first patient advocate, delivered the opening address. His crystalline form pulsed with strong, stable light patterns as he spoke to the assembled crowd. "Dr. Blake didn't just heal my body," he said, his words translated into dozens of galactic languages simultaneously. "She helped me heal my heart and my spirit. She reminded all of us that medicine without compassion is just sophisticated repair work." Emma's acceptance speech was simple but powerful. She stood at the podium wearing the same worn medical uniform she had arrived in, her leather medical bag sitting on the table beside her. "We've learned something important here," she said, looking out at the crowd of alien physicians, government officials, and medical students. "The most advanced technology in the galaxy means nothing without understanding, patience, and genuine care for the person who needs healing. Every patient is a living being with hopes and fears and stories to tell, not just a collection of symptoms to fix." The new institute began its revolutionary training programs immediately. Human doctors learned to operate quantum diagnostic equipment and molecular reconstruction systems, while alien physicians studied patient psychology, therapeutic communication, and holistic assessment techniques that considered mind, body, and spirit as connected parts of a whole. Dr. Helen Cross, once deeply skeptical of human methods, had become one of Emma's most dedicated converts. The six-armed arachnid surgeon now spent equal time studying patient emotional states as she did reviewing surgical procedures. "I performed flawless operations for decades," she explained to a group of medical students during one of her lectures. "But I never understood why some patients recovered quickly while others struggled. Now I know that healing the person is just as important as repairing the body." Dr. Kethmore had incorporated meditation and mindfulness practices into his energy healing techniques. The ethereal physician discovered that patients responded much better when their psychological and spiritual needs were addressed alongside their physical ailments. "Energy follows consciousness," he told his students. "If the mind is troubled, the body cannot truly heal, no matter how advanced our technology." Even Dr. Apollo 7 had evolved dramatically. The AI medical systems programming now included comprehensive emotional assessment protocols and something that had never existed before in artificial intelligence, bedside manner subroutines that made its interactions with patients more compassionate and effective. The Institute's success stories began spreading throughout the galaxy within weeks of opening. A gaseous being suffering from density fluctuation disorder recovered when doctors addressed their fear of dissolving permanently. A silicon-based life form with crystallization problems healed after working through grief over losing their mate. A liquid species with cohesion issues improved dramatically when their loneliness and isolation were treated alongside their physical symptoms. Emma's office had become a pilgrimage destination for medical professionals from across known space. Her walls were covered with letters from grateful patients and pictures of successful treatments that combined the best of both worlds, cutting-edge alien technology guided by ancient human wisdom about healing. One afternoon, as Emma reviewed applications from medical students wanting to study at the Institute, a soft chime announced an incoming emergency message. It was from a remote frontier colony requesting urgent assistance with what they called an impossible case. Silicon-based life form experiencing cascade quantum failures, the message read. "Our best specialists are stumped. Heard about your work with impossible cases. Can you help?" Emma smiled as she gathered her medical equipment, the same worn leather bag she had carried aboard Meridian 7 so many months ago. Some things, she reflected, never changed. The galaxy had learned to combine the most advanced technology with the oldest healing wisdom, but it all still came down to one simple truth. As she headed for the transport bay, Emma thought about everything that had happened since she first stepped onto the medical station. The galaxy's greatest doctors had given up on Commander Velthak, declaring his case hopeless. But sometimes the most powerful medicine in the universe wasn't found in quantum chambers or molecular reconstructors. Sometimes it was simply remembering that every patient was someone's family, someone's friend, someone worth fighting for. The galaxy's medical revolution had begun not with new technology, but with the oldest healing tool of all, one person caring enough to truly listen to another. The transport lifted off into the star-filled darkness, carrying Emma toward another impossible case, another chance to prove that healing was about more than just fixing what was broken. It was about helping people become whole again.